person I'm going to call up before I call up the main person is Adrian. He's going to read from our Science of Mind magazine. And we have these for sale. They're $5. They've got daily affirmations and stories. It's a great book. Can you introduce
the
big kahuna?
Oh, yeah, I can. A shift from me to we. As we function in this consciousness of the oneness of the universe, we lift the thought of the world around us. Nona L. Brooks, Mysteries, page 22. In mind, there is no time, no space, no place. There is only wholeness, oneness, and eternity. Ernest Holmes, a new design for living, page 194. There's a shift taking place in human consciousness. It's slow, but it's there. The shift is from what's in it for me to how can I do business in a way that benefits not only me, but others at the same time. Profit and philanthropy are not at odds for some entities. For some entities, marrying the two is now an essential way to do business. There's a yogurt company that donates a tub to the hungry for every tub it sells, or the eco-friendly cleaning products company that donates laundry detergent or meals for each package purchased. In addition to planting trees and cleaning up the oceans, there's a shoe company that donates 1/3 of its profits to help others, and a sock company that donates a pair of socks to homeless shelters for each pair purchased. These examples abound. It's not uncommon for a company to have an impact tab on its website so potential customers can see what the company does to make the world better. Butte, Montana found a creative way to make an impact. Per state law, a court can allow a fine to be met through a food bank donation. Each December, those who owe fines can bring 30 cans of food to court and have their fine reduced by $150. Imagine how the energy around paying those fines is transformed from anger to the feeling of doing good. It makes them feel better. Judge Jerome McCarthy told CNN, how can you live your life in a way that benefits others as well as yourself? And the affirmation is, in all that I do, I look for ways I can benefit others at the same time, recognizing my oneness with all and taking part in this colossal shift in the consciousness of humanity. All right, and it is now my wonderful pleasure to introduce Reverend Doug Craig with Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star.
As long as you get your stuff and not mine. Good morning. Good morning. How's everyone doing this morning? I was listening really closely to what Adrian said about that feeling good about, useful about paying fines. I don't know if I'll ever get there. I don't care what they do with them. I just don't think I'll ever get there. You know, it's probably past programming in that. So, anyhow, what is the science of mind? You know, one of the quick, there's two different quick ones. One is it's the study of the nature of life and the laws of thought. And then there's the one I always do because I got to use the KISS system. You know what that is, eh? Keep it simple, sweetheart. And I always like to keep it like that. So my formula for success that I use, I've talked to thousands of kids on it, and I always used it for myself, is your attitude plus your choices equal your consequences. And I proved that both with good attitude, good choices, and good consequences, and a whole whack of bad choices with a bad attitude, and guess what kind of consequences I got? Bad. So I like good ones, though, don't you? Okay, well, let's start out with an opening meditation treatment. So please join with me in consciousness and go within to that inner power and that inner presence and know that that one eternal life that is ever forever giving of itself is God's life, and that life is my life, your life, our life, every life right here and right now. And so as we go within, we see the darkness as we close our eyes. However, as we stay focused within, we do see a light. And that's our inner twinkling star that's always there, just waiting for us to turn to it. And as we turn to that inner power and inner presence, it responds to us. So we need to be clear on our communication and our approach to that higher self and that higher power. And so we seek the clarity and ask the question, or seek the guidance and be aware of where it takes us. So let's just take a few moments in quiet contemplation to seek a question that we're looking for an answer. And let's put it in mind and just focus on it for a while and know that Spirit responds. And so knowing that the Spirit responds to all questions, we keep our awareness around us and about us for that inspiration to come. And it may come in a dream, a vision. It may come in an unusual thought at an unusual time. It may come from a coincidental experience with stuff in the world around us, or from a person that comes into our life. There's many different ways and many different opportunities for Spirit to communicate to us. It is through our awareness and knowing that the answer is coming that we watch more carefully and more intently to what is going on around us. And so we know, with that now accepted and declared, that it is now a reality, and we're thankful for this. So we give the thanks, and we let it be so, and so it is. Well, they get more creative with the monthly topics and the weekly talks every time, and so the monthly theme is Light Within the Shadows. And of course it's Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. And you know, what one has to know is that it doesn't matter whatever is presented anytime and anywhere, or something that's there eternally in our lives, like the stars. It really doesn't matter what anybody else thinks about that or how they perceive it. It only really matters what we think about it and what we perceive it, because we're going to walk away with that idea. So for some, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star is simply a nursery rhyme for children. And that's great. It's a nice little ditty. But what is it there for us? How can we see it? Because, you know, a lot of the stories that were written for children weren't just written for children. A lot of the old ones, like, they were written with a message for people when eras happened where messages that were delivered for adults wasn't appropriately received. So it was done through children's stories. And so I like the Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. The marketing teaser they give is, stars shine brightest against a dark backdrop like the evening sky. The brilliance of each star is illuminated and magnified by its companion of darkness. The beautiful glow of the star calls forth deep richness of the night as they co-create magnificence that's crisp, sharp, and shiny. And the affirmation is, my star shines brightly within the light and the shadow. And so, open up to the idea of how we can look at that. We all look at the stars, and a lot of times people think there's something different than the light, than the sun. And they're not. They're exactly the same as the sun, because it's the sun that causes the light from the stars. That's how we see it. For the bulk of them anyhow, unless you're talking galaxies and all that other stuff. But generally speaking, what we see is simply a reflection of the light. And that's always there. Has anybody ever gone and just laid around and looked at the stars? Yeah, it's kind of a neat thing to do. And you know, Martin Luther King said that only in darkness can you see the stars. You can't see them during the day. Well, does that mean they go away? Well, Rummy says, from the Essential Rummy, no one looks for the stars when the sun's out. A person blended into God does not disappear. He or she is just completely soaked in God's qualities. So that's what happens to the stars when the sun comes out. So they're not something different from the self, they're something unique on their own. And they are important. Well, you know, a few stories about that go back to time past many, many years ago, before we got all the modern technology and equipment. And this is kind of like the third verse of that poem. It says, then the traveler in the dark thanks you for your tiny spark. He could not see which way to go if you did not twinkle so. So that is one of the most powerful little ditties that you could ever come across. I mean, how could they have wrote the birth of Christ when the three magi followed the star? If they couldn't find a star, everybody been wandering around the desert wondering what's happening. And where's it happening, right? So anyhow, that's another story. But, you know, where it was critically important is they never had navigational equipment and this sonar and radar and all this stuff they had back in the days when the old sailors sailed across the ocean. They used the stars to navigate. I remember this winter we went over to Hawaii and we spent a day in the Polynesian Cultural Center, actually a couple of days there. Phenomenal experience, and learned the history of the Samoans. The Samoan Empire in distance is a massive thing. Like to go from one end of it to the other by their canoes takes about 2 to 2.5 years. You're flying there for 15 hours, no problem. But those guys setting out with those canoes with their food and going on that journey for 2.5 years from the Fiji Islands to the Hawaiian Islands. And what did they do? What did they go on? They only had that inner presence and that inner power to trust and guide them, as well as the stars. So they used the stars. And so bringing it back to something more relevant to me was my dad. My dad was a pilot in World War II and flew 250 combat missions, not as a combat pilot, but as a pilot in a combat zone that dropped supplies to the troops that were driving the Japanese from Myanmar, which was Burma in that days, in northern industry, right over to the far end of Mandalay on the Chinese border. And they didn't have radar and sonar and all that stuff. They navigated by the stars. That's how they did their navigation. That's how they found their way. And my dad used to take us out at nights, and we'd go out in the mountains because there wasn't no lights in town to speak of. And he'd take us for a journey on the different constellations and the names of the stars and direction. I forgot most of it, but it was always fascinating. And he loved doing it because he was a pilot, you know. And then he did that to my grandchildren, too. Or my children, not my grandchildren, children. Yeah. And interestingly enough, as a little side to that, he took his wireless training and navigation training in the second largest Commonwealth training school in the Second World War from the British Commonwealth, and it was at SAIT in Calgary. And I have a picture of him standing on the steps of the old Heritage Hall there in 1942 when he graduated with his Air Force class to go on into combat. So you see, the stars mean a lot more to different people for different reasons. And again, it's not only the navigation and things like that, but it's the significance. I mean, astrology. Anybody ever delve into astrology? We all have, haven't we? Come on now. And yet people say, well, I don't know, the validity, you look at the stuff, there seems to be a lot of validity to a lot of that. And people say, why? Well, when the planet is shifted in different areas, there are different energies that happen from the planets that pull differently and affect us, because we're full of water, eh? And other things. I'll leave that alone. Okay, but we're full of mostly water. And so the energy affects us with the pulls from the different areas. And so the astrological concepts are delved straight from where the stars are, and the different stars represent the different areas that we're born in, the different signs. So I find it actually quite fascinating. And, you know, people say, that's a bunch of crap. There's no energy from that. It affects the water in there. Has anybody ever watched the ocean tide come in and out? Why? That's the energy from the moon. Hello? And you know, when there's a full moon, there's Looney Tunes happening all the time. All you got to do is go to a dementia clinic or a prison and a nut house. And then, of course, I'm trying to, you don't have to go there. You could just go downtown. People do get a little off on that time, huh? And that's because of the energy pull. It happens. So there's just so much to the twinkle, twinkle of that little star that we never really comprehended. And so I was just kind of contemplating how I could put that down. And this kind of just come through me. The darkness of night is not the darkness in life, because the stars are the expression of the eternal light that is within our life. The stars are just a different presentation of that which is already and always there, the sun and the Spirit. It's important to remember that the light is always there. However, here we go. We cannot see the stars at night if there are obstructions like clouds, storms, wildfire smoke, volcanic ash. And similarly, we cannot see the light within us if we shroud it with worry, doubt, judgment, negativity, and fear. Those are all enemies of the light. These elements cloud our inner and outer vision, much like storms, clouds, wildfire smoke, and volcanic ash obstruct the twinkling of the stars. Keep your inner sky feel free from obstructions, and remember what Dr. Ernest Holmes said in the last paragraph on page 282. There are no obstructions to the operation of truth. So we declare it, and we work at eliminating those. And as we eliminate those, the inner star shines brightly, and it shines brightly on the outside. Haven't you ever walked by someone and said, holy crap, there's trouble there? You don't need to say anything or a word, but you could feel it, because what's going on inside is covering their star. Or you see somebody else and you don't know who they are. You look at them and say, what a wonderful person that is. Look at, they're so bubbly and alive, and you can just feel that energy. Is that true? Yeah, because They're probably free from worry, doubt, judgment, fear, and negativity. So their star is shining, eh? And so the idea is, if you don't like what you're drawing to in your life or how you see it, then one needs to change what's going on inside, and you will see that and draw that to you. You have no idea how many nice people I have in my life. I'm very fortunate. I have a very good community here, a spiritual community in Calgary called Unity. I've been speaking there once a month for 19 years. And then there's our home center, CSL. And not to mention that, I'm going to have lunch. I organize a lunch every now and again with 18 guys that I worked with, all business guys from SAIT. And the last one I had 5 guys there that taught me. They were my instructors as well as colleagues, but in 1973 to 75. Get a handle on that. And then we're going on a motorcycle trip this summer, and it's a bit of a reunion, and we got 15 of the guys that are coming I've known for 47 to 52 years, and one of them for 62. Now, how fortunate am I? Never mind just my family and all the other people I got around, just general friends, but I got these communities and groups. And I fit in nicely in all of them, and I enjoy all of them. But it wasn't given to me. None of it. I had to earn it. And the way I earned it was through learning to respect myself enough not to do as many of the stupid things I did. Notice I didn't say stop doing stupid things. I haven't quite figured that out yet. The clock's still ticking on that one. But it gets better and better, because when you realize your attitude plus your choice equals your consequences, and then you come back to the awareness and see what you're doing. I got a group of students that still get together every now and again and have me there. In 1988, walk into the room, they said, "Hey, watch out for your stinking thinking. Give yourself a checkup from the neck up." I guess I used that quite a bit in the classroom, eh? So they all know that one, and they just love it, eh? So it's kind of neat. So the twinkle in the twinkle of the little star is a whole lot more than just a nursery rhyme. And you could look at it all the different ways I have, or none of them, and have your own way. Maybe you could just go there and say, "Twinkle, twinkle, little sheep, help me get my sleep." And that's what they are, and you're counting them. I don't know. A lady by the name of Macrina Wiederker wrote a book called The 7 Sacred Pauses, and she wrote, "I have seen too many stars to let the darkness overwhelm me." Because remember, darkness is not a thing of itself. It's simply the absence of light. And if you can't see the light, don't matter whether it's nighttime or daytime, because it's the same light. If you can't see it, that's because there's an obstruction. So in your life, if you can't see it, it doesn't matter, because we're not just with it in the daytime. Sometimes we're with it in the nighttime. If we can't see that, it's simply because there's an obstruction within us. Now, it's very, very simple, right? And it is very simple to understand and get your mind wrapped around. However, this thing is called life. And talking about something is a way easier than doing it. It's when you start doing it that you sometimes get into stepping into the doo-doo. So we got to be a little careful there. And then now there's one other thing that we really need to look at here when we're talking about the darkness and the clouding of the light, because there's something else that happens to everybody here that nobody talks about because we don't want people to know what happens when our mind shifts away over there. And we get all those weird thoughts that we really don't particularly care about. And we never talk about them because who wants to talk about that stuff? Is there anybody that doesn't happen to? Oh, okay, so I'm in the right place then. Yeah. And so, but the question always comes is, why? All this other stuff that we're talking about, I can work with and I understand and I can see. Why does that happen? Is there a logical reason? Well, there is good news and bad news. The good news is yes, there's a reason. The bad news is no, you can't stop it. Okay? But when one understands it, one can work with it. And I call it, and you've heard this quote story before, it's called the dark night of the soul. Has anybody ever heard that? And that's going to take spiritual philosophy, it's going to take religion, and it's going to take quantum physics. All in the same pile to understand this. And really, what one needs to understand and accept at the level of quantum physics is everything that exists in form has some kind of an energy field around it. Ever felt anybody's energy, their aura? You know, we all have it. And without that, we couldn't be informed because we just blend into the universal stuff. Well, we can't see it, but you don't have to see it. It's there. Okay? Because there's not a spot where God is not. It's always there. So we would do that. Okay? So we would blend in there. So we do have this energy field that supports us. And what one must know and understand is that higher power within us that we call soul is much more in tune with the universal stuff than we at the human level, but that's part of who we are. But for that to exist and have its own identity within us, it has to have something that differentiates it from the universal stuff. Okay? And so that soul, as we call it, has an energy field. And all energy fields have a polarity to it. And we work on both ends of the stick because life is like a pendulum. It don't go tick, tick, tick. It goes tick, tock, tick, tock. And so it works like that. And so what's important to realize is that darkness at times in our journey is simply because we're on the other end of the pendulum swing and the other end of the stick. And the only way to get it moved this way quicker, would anybody like to do that? For most of the time when you identify that you're in it, the first thing is keep your mouth shut. Don't be going off on anything while you're there. Don't act out on it because that feeds the energy and holds it up here quicker. Just keep quiet, embrace it, and don't feed it, and it will just swing back over to the other side. And of course, when things are going well, don't get cocky, don't get smug. Don't think you've got it all together, okay? Okay? Because as soon as you do that, you push the pendulum back the other way. Just enjoy it, be grateful, and be thankful. Okay? So it's really important to explore that idea of the dark night of the soul and polarity, right from quantum physics to religion, right down to metaphysics that we do. Really interesting, because it's all the same. Everybody says the same thing. And they'll argue their own points, but they don't know they're arguing about being right. And they're both, everybody's right. Okay? So it's really important to know that twinkle, twinkle is little there always, but you have to, in those cases of the dark night of the soul, you have to learn how to manage it properly to get back into the light. Okay? So there's a lot there to think about and to get your mind wrapped around. I started going on this and I'm going, oh my, I could be here a long time. Ernest Holmes said, be the light that shines upon the darkness. And so that's our job. Eh? Our job, and you know, everybody else is going to benefit because we're going to be the light that shines on the darkness, and everybody else is going to be a benefit of it. But don't do it for everybody else. Don't do it for anybody else because it won't work. Do it for yourself. Have you ever met those people that are walking along and they just resonate negativity? They're just oozing with it. Right? And you want to go, oh, not me. Right? True? You know that. Well, you could be walking along with your light shining, and that's going to resonate, and everybody's going, oh, what a wonderful person. Look at them. They'll be drawn to you. I got my hair cut and my beard cut, and I was still Santa yesterday. Well, at least the kids said so. So who am I to argue, right? So be that light and shine all the time. And you'll be more approachable and your relationships will change. But you can't have your relationships with people changing until you change your relationship with yourself. That's just the way it is. And as you go along, actually, you begin to like yourself a whole lot better. Isn't that nice? Gosh, I like myself a whole lot better than I did, 45 years ago. I didn't like myself at all. I had fun doing what I was doing, but I didn't like myself. Okay? So I know for you, as I know for myself, that within each and every one of us is that divine presence and that internal light. And it is always there, it's always shining, and that I am willing in my life to remove and clear all obstructions so that light shines clearly in my life and guides me, leads me, and directs me to peace, prosperity, fulfillment, and happiness, because I deserve it, you deserve it, we deserve it. Thank you, God, and so it is. Whee!